Hello, dear members of the LovingtruthStories family. Today we bring you a romantic love story. So let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our heartfelt stories. Rain poured down that night, sirens screaming through the wet, dark streets of the Bronx. Maya Torres, just 21, was dragged into a police station in handcuffs, red and blue lights flashing against her tear-streaked face. Yet even with fear clawing at her chest, her brown eyes burned with defiance. She shouted, her voice trembling but fierce, "I didn't steal anything. You've got the wrong person." And just when it seemed like all hope was gone, the interrogation room door swung open. A man stepped in tall, commanding, his icy blue eyes cutting through the air like a blade. With one sentence, he changed Maya's fate forever. "That watch belongs to me." Rain hammered down on the crumbling streets of the Bronx like the sky itself had decided to drown the city. Water pooled in potholes, reflecting the flicker of broken neon signs. Sirens screamed somewhere in the distance, and the stench of damp garbage clung to the air. Maya Torres pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders, but it was useless. The fabric was already soaked through, clinging to her skin. Her sneakers squelched with every step, and she cursed under her breath. Another late shift at the greasy fast food joint had ended the same way it always did. A handful of crumpled bills in her pocket, tips that barely made a dent in the endless stack of hospital invoices waiting at home. Her brother, Lucas, just 15, was still on dialysis, his body weak, his future uncertain. He was the only family she had left. For him, Maya swallowed her pride, smiled through exhaustion, and kept going. She glanced at the dark reflection staring back from a puddle. Wet hair plastered to her cheeks, eyes rimmed with fatigue. This was her life. Survival, no more, no less. But survival has a way of being interrupted. As Maya cut through an alley, a blinding flash of red and blue washed over her. Tires screeched. A police cruiser skidded to a stop, water spraying across the pavement. Two officers stepped out, their faces hard and unreadable. "Miss Torres," one of them barked. Her stomach dropped. "Yes, you're under investigation for the theft of a Rolex watch. You'll need to come with us." "What?" Maya froze, her voice cracked with disbelief. "I didn't steal anything. I just got off work." The officer's expression didn't change. "You have the right to remain silent." Cold steel snapped shut around her wrists. The handcuffs bit into her skin. "No, wait," she shouted, twisting against their grip. "Please, you've got the wrong person. My brother, he's waiting for me. I can't." But her words were swallowed by the storm. The cruiser door slammed, locking her inside. The Bronx blurred past through rain-streaked glass, the city she thought she knew vanishing into shadows. The police station smelled of burnt coffee and damp paper. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Maya sat shivering in the interrogation room, hands trembling against the cold metal table. Her wet clothes clung like ice. Across from her, a middle-aged officer typed lazily at his computer, barely glancing at her. Maya Torres, age 21, no priors. He sipped his bitter coffee, then continued. "Rolex, 20 grand found in the dumpster behind your workplace. Looks bad for you." "I didn't touch it," Maya snapped, her voice hoarse but steady. "Somebody planted it, you have to believe me." The officer smirked. "We hear that every night." Her heart pounded. Images of Lucas's frail smile, his pleading eyes, flashed before her. If she ended up in jail, who would take care of him? She gripped her hands so tightly her nails dug into her palms, but the fear refused to leave. Then the door opened, and the room changed. A man stepped in, tall, broad-shouldered, carrying an aura that sucked the air out of the space. His black tailored suit fit him like armor. Rain glistened on his dark hair, slicked back neatly, and his piercing blue eyes swept over the room like a blade. Maya sat up straighter without even realizing it. The officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed." "Alexander Reed." the man said, his deep voice steady, commanding. "The watch belongs to me." Maya blinked. Him. She had seen men in expensive suits on TV walking out of sleek Manhattan skyscrapers, but never this close. He didn't belong here, not in the Bronx, not in this suffocating room. The officer held up a clear evidence bag containing the Rolex, its face glimmering under the sterile light. "We found it behind the restaurant. The girl was working the shift." "I didn't steal it." Maya's voice cracked. She leaned forward, desperate. "I don't even know how it got there." Alexander's gaze landed on her, sharp and unsettling. His eyes didn't soften, but something flickered there, something like recognition. "She didn't do it," Alexander said flatly. The officer frowned. "With respect, Mr. Reed, we have protocol." Alexander raised a hand. The room fell silent. His presence alone was enough to bend the air. "She was set up," he continued, "and I know who's behind it." His jaw tightened at the thought. An old acquaintance who enjoys playing dirty games. Maya's head snapped up. "You mean that woman in the red dress?" She whispered. The memory of spilled coffee, the fake smile, the overwhelming perfume flooded back. Alexander's lips curved into a humorless smile. "Exactly. My ex, and my rival knows it. You were nothing more than collateral damage." Maya's fists clenched. Anger boiled beneath her fear. "So because of your past, I get dragged in chains like a criminal." Alexander tilted his head, studying her as if she were a puzzle. "Which is why I'm here." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His voice dropped, low and deliberate. "I'll get you out of here, Maya. I'll cover your bail, your legal fees, even your brother's medical bills." Her breath caught. "What's the catch?" Alexander's eyes darkened, a mix of calculation and something more dangerous. "You'll pretend to be my girlfriend for 1 month. Attend my events. Stand by me in front of the press, and help me humiliate the man who orchestrated this, Victor Hale." Maya stared at him, stunned. "You want me to lie to the whole world, to play your puppet?" His gaze never wavered. "You don't have a choice. Without me, you'll be charged. And Lucas, he'll be alone." Her chest tightened. She thought of Lucas lying in that sterile hospital bed, whispering her name when the pain grew too much. She had promised her mother she'd protect him, no matter what. Maya closed her eyes. For a moment, silence wrapped around her like the storm outside. Then slowly she nodded. "I'll do it, but on one condition. You don't touch me unless I say you can, and if I want out, you let me walk away." For the first time, Alexander's expression shifted. Not amusement, not anger, but respect. "Deal." He gestured to the officer. "Release her." The handcuffs snapped open. Maya rubbed her sore wrists, the metal's ghost still clinging to her skin. She stood, her legs trembling, but she kept her chin lifted. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. Alexander's black limousine waited at the curb, sleek and gleaming under the streetlights. A chauffeur opened the door. Maya hesitated, staring at the car as if it were a gateway into another world. Bronx to Manhattan, dirt to diamonds, a prison to a palace. Alexander glanced back at her. "Get in!" Her heart hammered. She slid into the leather seat, the scent of cologne and polished wood overwhelming her senses. The door shut, sealing her fate. As the limousine pulled away, Maya pressed her forehead against the cool glass. The Bronx slipped further behind, swallowed by the storm. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She had just bargained with the devil in a designer suit, and her life would never be the same. The limousine slid to a stop in front of a glass tower that seemed to pierce the sky. Manhattan glittered around them, bright marquees, polished sidewalks, and a river of yellow cabs. To Maya, it was another universe. The chauffeur opened the door, and she stepped out, her worn sneakers squeaking on the marble tiles of the lobby. Everything smelled expensive. Leather briefcases, designer perfume, fresh-cut lilies in tall crystal vases. She hugged her damp jacket close, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked. Alexander Reed walked ahead, his stride purposeful, confident. The security guards nodded respectfully as he passed. Maya trailed behind, her eyes darting everywhere, trying to absorb the impossible contrast. The elevator ride was silent, only the hum of machinery breaking the tension. She stole a glance at him. His jaw was sharp, set with the weight of someone used to controlling entire empires. He caught her looking, and she quickly turned away, cheeks burning. When the doors opened, Maya stepped into a space that felt unreal. The penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the walls, unveiling the Manhattan skyline at night, a sea of lights glittering against the dark. The hardwood floors gleamed, rugs soft enough to swallow her tired feet. The place was pristine, almost sterile, like no one actually lived there. Her jaw tightened. "So this is where people like you live," she muttered. Alexander set his briefcase on a table without turning. "People like me. Rich, untouchable, cold," Maya said. He glanced at her then, his expression unreadable. "You'll get used to it." The next morning, she found a row of garment bags hung neatly in the walk-in closet. Dresses in silk, satin, velvet, each one cost more than she made in a year. A note rested on the dresser in Alexander's handwriting. "Wear one tonight. We have an event." Maya picked up a deep blue gown, her fingers trembling as they brushed the fabric. She felt like she was staring at someone else's life. Later, Alexander appeared in the doorway, immaculate in a black tuxedo. His eyes scanned her quickly. "Not bad," he said flatly, though the corner of his mouth threatened to betray something softer. Maya crossed her arms. "You mean I look like a doll you dressed up?" "Better a doll than a disaster," he shot back, though there was no venom in it. He adjusted the cufflinks on his shirt and added, almost reluctantly, "Confidence suits you. Keep your chin up tonight. Don't let them see you flinch." The Waldorf Astoria ballroom sparkled like a dream. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead, violins played softly, and men in tailored suits mingled with women draped in diamonds. Maya clung to Alexander's arm, her heels wobbling slightly, but she forced herself to walk tall. Whispers rippled around them. She could feel the stares, judgmental, curious, cruel. One woman sneered, whispering to her companion, "She looks like she just crawled out of the subway." Maya's throat tightened, but she swallowed hard. "You don't belong here," the voices in her head said. But she thought of Lucas, thought of the promise she made to him, and straightened her back. A heavy-set investor with a gold watch approached, smirking. "So this is the girlfriend, Reed, a Bronx girl in a gown, quite the charity project." The laughter from his group stung like a slap. Maya's nails dug into her palm. She opened her mouth before Alexander could answer. Her voice carried across the circle, sharp but steady. "Yes, I'm from the Bronx. But that doesn't mean I don't deserve to stand here. Wealth doesn't define worth. Respect does." The air froze. The investor's smile faltered. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Even Alexander blinked, caught off guard. He turned, studying her with a look she hadn't seen before, not cold calculation, not indifference. Something closer to admiration. Later, as the night wore on, Alexander leaned down, his lips brushing near her ear so no one else could hear. "You surprised me tonight," he admitted quietly. "Why?" "Because I didn't embarrass you." She whispered back, a trace of defiance in her tone. "Because you weren't afraid." His eyes searched hers, and for the first time she saw a flicker of the man behind the armor. She wanted to respond, but the moment shattered as a voice rang out across the room. Well, if it isn't Alexander Reed parading his latest companion." Maya stiffened as a tall man approached, his tailored suit a shade lighter than Alexander's, his grin razor sharp. His eyes slid to Maya, raking over her with cruel amusement. Victor Hale, Alexander's rival, the man whose name carried shadows of power games and betrayal. Victor extended a hand mockingly. "You've outdone yourself this time, Reed. A Bronx girl on your arm. How original." Maya's pulse quickened, but Alexander's grip tightened around her hand. And for the first time that evening, Maya felt heat rush through her, not just anger, but something else, something dangerous. The days that followed blurred into something Maya never could have imagined. At first, she thought she was just surviving, memorizing how to hold her glass at dinner, practicing polite smiles, trying not to stumble in high heels that pinched her toes. Alexander gave her instructions like a drill sergeant, how to tilt her chin when cameras flashed, how to stand by his side without looking nervous, when to speak, when to stay silent. But slowly, something shifted. One morning, Maya slipped into the penthouse kitchen while Alexander buried himself in paperwork at his sleek mahogany desk. She rummaged through the cupboards until she found a bag of coffee beans and an expensive-looking machine that may as well have been from outer space. She frowned. How hard can it be? She muttered to herself, pressing buttons. Steam hissed violently. The machine sputtered like it was about to explode. Alexander's voice came from behind her, cool and amused. You're going to break a $10,000 espresso maker. Startled, Maya spun around, holding a half-filled cup that looked more like sludge than coffee. It's just coffee, Reed, not brain surgery. He raised an eyebrow. Coffee is sacred. She shoved the cup toward him. Then enlighten me, mister. Sacred, taste it. Alexander smirked, took a sip, and promptly choked. He coughed, eyes watering, then started laughing. Actual, genuine laughter. The sound startled her. It was deep, warm, and so rare that even he seemed caught off guard by it. Maya stared at him. Wow, so you do have a soul. He shook his head, still grinning. That was possibly the worst thing I've ever tasted. Then make your own damn coffee, she shot back, but a smile tugged at her lips. For the first time, the penthouse didn't feel so cold. Nights were different, too. Sometimes, after events, when the city glowed outside those endless windows, they would talk, not as CEO and contract girlfriend, but as two people. Maya sat curled on the couch one evening, barefoot, her hair falling loose. Lucas's hospital bills were spread across the coffee table, her constant reminder of why she was there. She noticed Alexander watching her. What? She asked quietly. You don't talk about yourself much, he said. Not really. Maya hesitated, then sighed. My mom died when I was 17, cancer. Lucas was still just a kid. After that, everything was on me, rent, food, his treatments. Her voice wavered, but she steadied it. I didn't have the luxury of dreaming. Alexander leaned back, silent for a moment. Then he spoke, his tone lower than usual, almost raw. I grew up in a mansion, but don't mistake it for happiness. My father built an empire and he expected me to carry it. No warmth, no approval, just pressure and silence. Their eyes met across the quiet room. For once, no sarcasm, no walls, just honesty. Maya whispered, so we're both trapped in cages. Yours has gold bars, mine has rust. Alexander didn't argue. He just poured them each a glass of water and sat beside her, closer than ever before. The turning point came at the charity gala. The ballroom brimmed with reporters, society elites, and investors who measured worth in bank accounts. Maya wore a gown the color of deep wine, her hair swept into elegant waves. She looked every inch the part Alexander had crafted for her, except for the fire in her eyes, which was all her own. Victor Hale prowled near the stage, his smile sharp as a blade. When Alexander stepped forward to address the crowd, Victor's voice cut through the chatter. Alexander Reed, the genius CEO, Victor said loudly, clinking his glass. Yet he hides behind a girl from the Bronx to distract from scandal. Quite the strategy. Gasps and laughter rippled through the audience. Maya felt the heat rise in her chest. Every eye turned to her, mocking, dissecting, dismissing. She could have stayed silent. She could have played the obedient role Alexander had instructed, but something inside her snapped. Maya stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble. Her voice carried, clear and unwavering. Yes, I'm from the Bronx. I waited tables. I cleaned grease from floors, but none of that makes me less than anyone here. I am not a prop, not a strategy. I stand here because I choose to, and no one, no matter how rich or powerful, gets to define my value. The room froze. Cameras flashed wildly. Some investors looked scandalized, others impressed. Alexander's jaw tightened as he watched her. He was supposed to control the narrative. Yet in that moment, Maya seized it, commanding the room with nothing but conviction. Victor's smirk faltered, though he recovered quickly, swirling his champagne as if unaffected. But the look in his eyes told a different story. He hadn't expected her strength. Later that night, as the gala ended and the limousine pulled away, silence filled the space between Maya and Alexander. He stared out the window, unreadable. Finally, he turned. "You were fearless," he admitted. She met his gaze. "Did I embarrass you?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes flickered with something she couldn't place, pride, confusion, maybe both. But then his phone buzzed. His expression darkened as he scanned the screen. "What is it?" Meyer asked cautiously. Alexander exhaled, his jaw hard. "The press." He handed her the phone. Headlines already splashed across news sites. Bronx waitress turned gold digger. Is Reed's new girlfriend a cover for scandal? Maya's chest tightened as the words stabbed at her. She looked up and froze, because Alexander wasn't just angry. He was staring at her with something else, something dangerous. Doubt. The headlines didn't fade. They multiplied like wildfire. Every news outlet carried some version of the story: Bronx waitress or gold digger. Reed's scandalous distraction. Is Alexander Reed losing his edge? By Monday morning, the Reed Corporation boardroom was a battlefield. Alexander stood at the head of the long glass table, his tailored suit crisp, but his eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. Around him, the board members whispered, brows furrowed, fingers drumming impatiently on polished wood. "Mr. Reed," one of the older men said sharply, "this relationship is damaging the company's reputation. Investors are nervous. Clients are questioning your judgment." Another chimed in, her voice clipped. "You've tied yourself to a woman with no background, no pedigree. If she is what the tabloids claim, then she is a liability, one we cannot afford." Alexander clenched his jaw, his hand tightening around the pen he held. He wanted to defend Maya, her fire, her courage, her truth, but the doubt gnawed at him. The relentless headlines, the mocking whispers at every gala, the way Victor Hale's smirk lingered in the background of it all. When the meeting adjourned, Alexander sat alone in his office, staring at the skyline. For years, he had been unshakable, every decision calculated, every risk measured. But this was different. Maya walked in quietly, carrying a stack of papers Lucas's doctor had sent. She hesitated at the look on his face. "What's wrong?" she asked softly. Alexander turned, his blue eyes sharp, conflicted. "Tell me the truth, Maya." She frowned. "About what?" His voice cracked like a whip. "Did you come to me for money? Was this all some plan to crawl out of the Bronx by latching onto me?" The words cut deeper than any insult. Maya froze, her chest tightening as if she couldn't breathe. "You think I'm here for a paycheck," she whispered. His silence was the answer. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Slowly, she pulled the folded note from her pocket. She had written it the night before, sensing this storm was coming. With trembling hands, she placed it on his desk. Her voice was low, steady, even as her heart splintered. "I never pretended. But if you don't trust me, then I don't have a reason to stay." And before Alexander could speak, she walked out. The Bronx hadn't changed in her absence. The streets still reeked of damp trash, neon still flickered, and kids still played soccer with dented soda cans. Yet when Maya stepped off the bus, dragging her old canvas bag behind her, everything felt heavier. She ran into Mrs. Ramirez, her elderly neighbor, on the corner near the bodega. The woman's eyes widened. "Maya, I saw you on TV. In that dress. Dios mio, I thought you'd never come back." Maya forced a smile. "Guess the fairy tale didn't last." The woman touched her arm gently. "You don't belong here anymore, Hija. Don't let this place chain you." But Maya only shook her head. "This is the only place that never lied to me." She walked on, the words echoing in her ears. Night fell. Maya had barely dropped her bag onto the worn couch when headlights swept across the broken blinds. A black SUV idled outside. Her stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Before she could react, the apartment door burst open. 2 men in dark coats stormed inside. Who are you?" Maya gasped, backing away. One of them grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. "Orders, you're coming with us." She thrashed, kicking, screaming. "Let me go, help, somebody help." But the hallway outside was empty. The Bronx had learned long ago to ignore cries in the night. A rag soaked in chemicals pressed against her face. The world tilted. Her knees buckled. Darkness swallowed her whole. When she woke, the smell hit first: oil, rust, mildew. Her wrists ached, bound tightly with coarse rope. The room was dim, a single bulb swinging overhead, casting cruel shadows on the cracked concrete walls. Her heart pounded as footsteps echoed. Victor Hale emerged from the darkness, his smirk curling like smoke. He was immaculate as ever, tailored suit, polished shoes, but in the flicker of the light, his presence reeked of menace. "Well, if it isn't the famous Bronx Cinderella," Victor drawled. "Though I must say you don't look so glamorous tied to a chair." Maya glared at him, forcing her voice not to shake. "What do you want?" He crouched down, his face inches from hers. "Simple, I want Reed to lose, and you, my dear, are the perfect bargaining chip." She spat the words like venom. "You're pathetic." Victor chuckled, straightening. "Perhaps, but pathetic men still win when they play the right game." He pulled a phone from his pocket, lifted it so she could see the screen. A red light blinked. The camera recorded her every breath. Victor leaned into the frame, his tone suddenly sharp. "Alexander Reed, if you want her back alive, you'll walk away from the $1 billion contract. Otherwise..." He let the words hang, slicing the air like a blade. Then he pressed send. Across the city, Alexander sat in his penthouse, staring at the note Maya had left on his desk. He had read it 12 times, each word twisting deeper. "I never pretended. But if you don't trust me, then I don't have a reason to stay." His phone buzzed, a message. He opened it, and his blood ran cold. On the screen, Maya tied to a chair in a desolate warehouse. Her eyes burned with defiance, but the ropes bit deep into her skin. Victor's voice echoed, "Walk away, Reed, or lose her forever." Alexander's glass shattered in his hand, crimson drops staining the carpet. "Maya," he whispered, his voice breaking for the first time in years. The video ended, but the image of Maya bound to that chair didn't leave Alexander's mind. Her dark eyes, fierce even in terror, burned into him like a brand. He slammed his fist on the desk, shattering the whiskey glass at his elbow. Shards scattered across the floor, but he didn't notice the blood streaking his hand. All he felt was rage. Rage at Victor for daring to touch her. Rage at himself for doubting her. And fear like he hadn't known since he was a child, that he might lose her forever. "Sir," his head of security said cautiously from the doorway, "we traced the signal. Abandoned warehouse, South Bronx." Alexander's jaw set like steel. "Get the team. We move now." The convoy of black SUVs sliced through the storm, tires hissing against wet asphalt. Inside the lead car, Alexander loaded the magazine of a pistol with steady hands. The men around him checked their weapons, exchanged sharp nods, but none dared speak. Because they could feel it, his fury filled the air, heavy and electric. At the warehouse, the team spread out, surrounding the building. Shadows moved inside, Victor's men armed and waiting. Alexander didn't hesitate. He pushed through the rusted doors, gun raised. The metallic clang echoed like a war drum. "Maya!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the cavernous space. Her muffled cry answered. "Alexander!" His heart clenched. She was there, tied to a chair under the flickering bulb, bruised but alive. And then Victor stepped out of the shadows, smug as ever, flanked by armed guards. "Well, well," Victor drawled, clapping slowly. "The great Alexander Reed, always so predictable. Did you really think I wouldn't know you'd come running?" Alexander's voice was low, lethal. "Let her go, Hale. This ends tonight." Victor smirked. "Oh, it ends tonight, Reed, but not the way you think." One of the guards raised his gun, aimed at Maya. Time slowed, the world narrowed. Maya's heart pounded. She knew in that instant, if she didn't act, it would all be over. Summoning every ounce of courage, she threw her weight forward, slamming her shoulder into the guard's chest. He staggered, firing a shot that went wide, ricocheting into the rafters. "Now!" Alexander barked. Gunfire erupted. Reed's security team stormed in, overwhelming Victor's men. Bullets tore through crates, sparks flying, shouts filling the warehouse. Alexander sprinted toward Maya, shoving one of Victor's guards to the ground. He cut the ropes from her wrists with a swift slash of his knife. She collapsed against him, trembling but defiant. "I knew you'd come," she whispered hoarsely. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing the dirt from her cheek. "I'll never let anyone take you from me again." The chaos ended as quickly as it had begun. Victor was forced to his knees, cuffed and snarling as security dragged him forward. "You'll regret this, Reed." Victor spat. "She's just a distraction. You'll lose everything." Alexander stared down at him, eyes like shards of ice. "You've already lost." Evidence was seized, hard drives, forged documents, proof of every rumor, every scandal Victor had orchestrated. The empire Victor had built on lies crumbled in that moment. When silence finally returned, Alexander pulled Maya into his arms, holding her as though she might vanish if he loosened his grip. His chest rose and fell against her cheek, his heartbeat hammering. He whispered into her hair, voice raw, breaking. "I'd rather lose everything, every contract, every dollar than lose you." For a moment, Maya clung to him. For a moment, the world disappeared and there was only his warmth, his words, his truth. But then she remembered. The boardroom. His question that sliced her open. "Did you come to me for money?" The memory still bled inside her. Maya pulled back, eyes glistening. She turned her face away, her voice barely audible but steady. "You already lost me when you doubted me, Alexander." And she stepped back, leaving his arms empty. 3 months later, the Bronx didn't look the same. Where once stood the crumbling old police precinct, the same place where Maya Torres had been dragged in handcuffs months earlier, now rose something entirely different. Bright windows, polished wooden shelves, and a sign that read, "The Bronx Community Library where dreams begin." It was Maya's vision, born from her pain and turned into purpose. She had partnered with a local charity, poured her heart into raising funds, and turned a place of fear into a place of hope. Children ran through the doors clutching books. Teenagers studied in corners, and mothers sat together reading aloud to their toddlers. Maya stood at the podium in a simple black dress, her hair down in loose waves. Her voice was calm but strong as she addressed the crowd. "I grew up believing dreams didn't belong to kids from the Bronx, but today proves otherwise. Every child deserves a chance to believe in something greater than their circumstances." Applause filled the air, but just as she stepped back from the podium, the crowd hushed, because Alexander Reed was walking through the doors. He wasn't in his usual armor of a CEO. No tuxedo, no icy glare. Just a white button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a little wind in his hair. For the first time, he looked less like the untouchable billionaire and more like a man stripped bare. Maya's breath caught. She hadn't seen him since the night of the rescue. She'd heard rumors, Reed Corporation's stocks rebounded, Victor Hale had been indicted, investors returned, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the man walking toward her now. He climbed the steps to the stage, taking the microphone with a steady hand. His blue eyes swept over the crowd before settling on her. "I need to say something," Alexander said, his voice resonating through the hall. "There's been a story told about Maya Torres, that she was a gold digger, that she used me, that she didn't belong in my world." He paused, jaw tight, then added with raw honesty, "That story is a lie." Maya's heart pounded as whispers rippled through the audience. He turned to face her fully, his voice breaking just slightly. "This woman is not a scandal. She's not a distraction. She's the reason I learned how to love. She's the reason I became a better man. And if you want the truth," his throat tightened, "I don't want a life or an empire or even myself without her." Gasps echoed through the crowd as Alexander dropped to one knee. He pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Not flashy, not for the headlines, just real. "Maya Torres," he said, eyes glistening, "will you marry me? Not as someone I own, not as someone who owes me, but as my equal, my partner, the only home I've ever wanted." Tears blurred Maya's vision. For months, she had built her life on her own strength, refusing to need anyone. But in this moment, she saw him not as the man who once doubted her, but as the man who fought for her, admitted his flaws, and laid himself bare before the entire world. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "Yes, but on one condition, promise me you'll always see me as your equal, never as something you possess." Alexander's smile broke wide, his shoulders shaking with relief. He slipped the ring onto her finger, his voice hoarse as he whispered, "I promise, always." He stood and pulled her into his arms. The audience erupted in applause, but all Maya heard was his heartbeat against hers. Weeks later, under the golden light of a Long Island sunset, their wedding took place on the shore. No flashing cameras, no grand spectacle, just intimacy. The sea breeze tangled in Maya's veil, and the scent of salt and roses filled the air. Lucas, healthier now, stood proudly as the best man. His smile was brighter than any diamond. Maya walked barefoot down the aisle in a flowing white gown, holding a bouquet of wild flowers. Alexander waited at the end in a classic black suit, his eyes locked on hers as though she was the only person in the world. When she reached him, he whispered low enough for only her to hear, his voice thick with emotion. "You're not my pretend girlfriend, Maya. You are my home." Her tears fell freely as she whispered back, "And you're mine." They exchanged vows, his voice breaking as he promised never to doubt her again, her steady as she vowed to love him not for his wealth, but for the man beneath it all. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Alexander cupped her face and kissed her with a tenderness that carried every ounce of pain, healing, and love they had fought through to get here. Applause and cheers filled the beach, but for them, the world had narrowed to a single truth. They had been forged through fire, broken by mistrust, rebuilt through courage, and now, finally, they were whole. As the waves crashed against the shore and stars began to scatter across the night sky, Maya leaned against Alexander's chest, her wedding ring glinting in the moonlight. She whispered, "So this is what a happy ending feels like." Alexander pressed a kiss to her forehead. "No," he said softly, "this isn't the ending, it's the beginning." As I reflect on this story, I realize it isn't just about Maya and Alexander, it's about us. About how fragile trust can be, and how powerful it becomes when we choose to rebuild it. Life will test us with doubts, with whispers from the outside world, with storms that make us question the people we love. But in the end, what defines us is not the mistakes we make, but the courage we find to face them, and the strength to forgive. I've learned that love without equality is not love, it's possession. And love without trust is nothing but fear. When two people decide to stand side by side, not above or beneath, but as equals, that's when love becomes unshakable. So I ask you, what about your life? Have you ever doubted someone who only needed your belief? Or have you been the one waiting, silently, for someone to finally see your worth? Think about it. Because sometimes the most important battles are not against the world, but against our own mistrust. If you find this story meaningful and want to help us share these important values, please subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next inspiring story. Together, we can build a strong community full of potential and a spirit of justice.